Okay. All right. So welcome to the summer of 2022. What's the weather like where you guys are?
It's humid and warm.
Do you see my hair? It's like frizzy.
Yeah.
I did not notice that, but it's good. We're going to throw it back to the 1980s when you all had very big hair. I had big hair in the 80s myself. That has changed of late. So we're going to talk about something that didn't really exist. Good morning, everybody who's joining us. You are going to want to hear this subject. You're going to want to share it. Corinne, please stop barking. Thank you. We're going to talk about something that did not really exist so much in the 80s, but there is some historical context. We're speaking, of course, about body positivity and body acceptance. This is relevant for a lot of people's lives, for a lot of people's self-esteem. So let me give some historical context. Apparently, these movements have existed before, even going back to Victorian times, where the insane female populations of places like Britain would take their corsets and they would somehow use some kind of a system that would make their waist like 2 inches big, no matter how large the rest of them were. Right? I don't know how they did this. They had help. They had people pulling from either side, but they were able to do this. And this was the fashion at the time. So there was a movement against that. Hey, Joe, some people were saying, this is crazy. This is insane. Why are we doing this? And there was also a counter movement, right? Anytime there's a movement, there's a counter movement. Right. People said that that's the female ideal. You should try to look like that. And then, of course, when females tried and they broke their ribs in the process, other people said, well, you're too vain.
Yeah.
So you couldn't
None of this is about being vain.
Well, sort of it is, or at least it was back then in Victoria times with what we're talking about, right? Because a person was damned if they did, they were damned if they didn't. Now, coming back more to present history, you may notice that, well, show of hands, how many of you in the 1990s carried around cameras with you everywhere you went?
A camera?
Yes,
No.
yes. Raise your hand. No? Nobody carried cameras everywhere?
No.
I had one of the long ones.
Any kind of camera, anything you could record people's image on?
No.
Okay.
Not all the time.
How many of you carry cameras now with you everywhere you go?
Well, we all do because we all have a cell phone.
That's right. Everyone in society carries a camera everywhere they go. Now, a few years ago, there was the advent of social media. So all of a sudden, there's a lot more attention on image than there was. It had died down. Like I said, throughout history, there have been various movements. In the 1990s, people were a little upset because, you know, there was this ideal of the model. The model was always skinny with big boobage, and women couldn't keep up that kind of appearance. Nobody could look like that. Nobody could look like a human Barbie. Real people didn't look like that. So there was a little rebellion against that. I didn't know what term to use, Jen. Sorry. So this happens once in a while. It's happening again now since the 2010 approximately. This has been a story. So my first question to you is, you all have daughters. And this tends to be more acute for females than it is for males, right? Not that it doesn't exist for males. But how important are the topics of body acceptance and body positivity to you with your female daughters?
I'm gonna opt out of this conversation with regard to my daughters, because it's an issue.
For you as a mother, got it. So it is a thing.
Yeah. Okay,
so it's a relevant thing, right? It's not because, you know, when we have these movements these days, there's the question about the relevancy. Are people being oversensitive? Or is it do you consider it a valid movement given historically how females have been judged, often harshly, for their appearance?
So are we talking about like the Dove Love the Skin You're In campaign, like that sort of thing, right?
Well, okay, good. So let's define it a little bit. Body acceptance and body positivity, these are not the same things.
Correct. Right.
Body acceptance is more like, well, you're not always going to love your body, but just accept it as is. Some days will be better than others. Body positivity is you have to love your body. And then there's body neutrality, which means, well, you shouldn't have that much attention on it anyway.
So, okay, got it. So here's the thing. Like, I think that there's been a massive shift in consciousness, and the advertising campaigns have amped up to, on one hand, present women more as they are. And then on the other hand, to glorify and idolize obesity. So, I love the song. What is that Lizzo song? It's about damn time. But I don't really want to see Lizzo dancing on the stage with her backside hanging out. And
Not a fan of the backside hanging out.
Not a fan.
Especially
However,
in Walmart. There's a movement in Walmart. I think this is a counter movement.
Oh God, ew.
Right? Nobody
People
wants to see
Walmart?
that, I assume.
Walmart, yeah. So, it is a good thing to be able to understand that not everybody looks the same, but we've swung to the point where we're accepting unhealthy as normal, and we're promoting unhealthy as normal. If I hear one more person say, I can be healthy and overweight, and you're like 300 pounds,
No.
that's not healthy.
Right.
And then we're told we're fat shaming. And I always say this to people, I've been overweight and I've been not overweight. And there's a definite difference between the two. But being told at 180 pounds that maybe this is just your body and you should accept it because this is where you are, you're 50 years old, blah, 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 whatever. I didn't accept that.
Okay. So in your estimation, a valid movement with good aspects, right? It started for an important reason, but the pendulum swung too far in many cases.
So
True?
I think, yes, but I think it was a by design gradient scale by the advertisers to get us to accept big as healthy so that more products could be sold. So I'm a little bit more skeptical on it.
Got
Well,
it.
I agree with you, Jen, because, when you look, and not to sound like I'm being obnoxious, like nowadays, like there are certain advertisers and these children are morbidly obese at certain times and they're walking around in a bikini.
Right.
And I say to myself, like, as a parent, I would not want my child to be in a bikini. Like, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I mean that, like, there's a time and a place for that at certain points.
Well,
And
I want to circle back to this, but first, as far as the question I threw out there, which is sort of a survey of what your feelings are as parents with daughters regarding the validity or importance of a body acceptance or body positivity movement and mindset. So Corinne, you first, and then Trish.
I think it needs to be handled with kind of like kid gloves, because myself, for example, my daughter is extraordinarily thin, and then she'll eat like really bad, and she'll be like, "Oh my God, do you see the bloat on me? Do you see this? Do you see that?"
Right.
And I look at her like, "You're 90 pounds wet. Like, you really have to worry about this because you're beautiful. It doesn't really matter." Like, and then I remind her, like, remember, when you feel bloated, it's because you're not eating properly. Like, do you want to continue to feel this way, or do you want to make better choices?
But is this a vote then on your part in favor of this movement that says that you need to, or you should, accept yourself and accept your body?
Yeah.
Okay,
You
good.
need to accept yourself, but no, I have more to say, but I'm gonna just.
I get the buts. There's always the buts are valid too, and when we say but now, we mean one T. Trisha, how about you? What are your thoughts on it? Are you glad that something like body acceptance, body positivity exists, so it's in the consciousness of kids, your kids maybe in particular, or maybe not?
I feel like it's a hard thing. You want them, I want her to, because I do have a daughter, she's 13. We're in the middle of that, her body is a little different. She's very curvy. and in her eyes, it perceives that she is much larger than other kids, but she just has a more of a shapely body. So, you know, we become at 13 conscious of what we're eating. And so I want her to love herself and think that she is beautiful, because she is, and she is very thin, but she's curvy. And I want her to be able to be positive, but I don't want it to swing the opposite way where it becomes she's, you know, obsessed with, you know, the image that she sees on social media and TikTok and all this stuff. So I don't want it to go that way where it becomes obsessive about being thin
Right.
and
Right.
too skinny, but I also don't want her to think she can just eat whatever she wants, because I had that when I was young. I was pretty much the same thing. I was very thin, and then I thought like I can eat, you know, McDonald's and Chinese food, and you know, that caught up with me many years later. So I don't want that to be for her either. So I feel like it's a very hard thing.
Well, it sounds like what you're saying is that love is important, but to a certain degree, shame has its place also, because these things seem to be set in opposition to each other.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of mixed messages.
Yeah, it's
A lot of mixed messages. So, Jen, social media, a lot of people are putting the blame for this on social media. Is social media at fault?
I think, like I said before, that there has been an insidious ad campaign. So our kids watch TikTok videos, right? Not a fan, didn't really want it happening, but there's a point when they'd start
to give
doing
up.
what they're doing. And you see on there these little tiny waif-like prepubescent adult girls presenting TikTok videos. And I watched something really interesting about like these Chinese influencers, and they are in cubicles in designed sets. Like there are 12 of them in a row, and they're presenting their clothing and their, you know, and it aligns with the anime movies. But those girls are basically like fashion slaves. And our kids don't know that. They don't know that they're not organic influencers. They are held captive. So there's like so much behind the scenes of what our kids are being influenced by. And then on the other hand, we have the love the skin you're in movement. So they're getting a lot of mixed messages.
Yeah,
and
I
think I think where body positivity comes in is not everybody is a, no pun intended, one size fits all, right? You have to look at your frame and you have to look at your shape. Like I look at people like Trisha, you're tall and thin, and you know, you're not bottom heavy, which that's always I love that look, right? I can't have that. That's not, I'm curvy, right? Your daughter has a certain body shape.
Yeah.
Like she'll never be, that's just who she is. Now, you can have a healthy body fat composition and still have those curves, or you can have a healthy body fat composition and still be tall and slender. But everything has to be designed to fit the person's natural physique. And we've lost a little bit our idea of what's healthy, what looks healthy anymore. So it's one, yeah, exactly. So there's a contradictory message and two ends of the pendulum.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, let me speak as a guy, which I am perfectly qualified to do.
No boobage.
That's not as a guy. That's as a doctor. That's where that term comes from.
Boobage is a medical term.
Yeah, no, not that I'm aware. But listen, I've had these conversations with females in the past, friends, girls I was dating, and the conversation goes something like this. Something like, I'll say like, what are you doing? Your entire gender is insane. Look at the things that you do to look good. It's crazy. Like whether it's historically what we were talking about with those corsets or breaking ribs, or I mean, you're so fashion focused. And then the answer I usually get is this, and you'll pardon my impression. I usually get something like, well, it's because of you men. It's because of your ideals about how we're supposed to look. And I'm like, don't blame me. I mean,
Yeah.
I asked you out. Like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So, whose fault is it? Where does the fault lie? Does it lie with men? Does it lie with advertisers? Does it lie with the individual who maybe, does not have the wherewithal to be able to be comfortable in their own skin? Trish.
I think it's more, I don't know. I feel like it might be more of the outside influence, right?
Yeah.
Like more of what they're seeing on TV and the, computer stuff. That's where I think it all comes from.
Yeah.
Just conflicting back and forth of what they feel and what they see.
Okay, got it. So it's the fault of the media, of culture, of
That's right,
advertisers,
culture,
of the
yeah,
almighty
definitely.
dollar. It's the fault of them.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
though now they're saying it's okay to look however you want. Now you have a plethora of overweight models that are out there. You have all different kinds of body
Yeah,
shapes
and
and styles being seen on television.
Read an article this weekend that like the time of like Kate Moss when she was like super skinny, they're
Yeah.
calling it like heroin chic is back. And I'm like, what's
It's
like
not.
what are they say? What are you saying to children? Like heroin is what will make you thin and skinny? Like,
Right.
that's like, how do you even categorize that as that?
Right.
Like, and then if a kid were to see that, oh, heroin makes you thin and skinny, and like that's such a terrible,
message to
put that
send.
even in their heads. That's frightening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Corinne, where does the fault and the responsibility lie, in your opinion?
I agree with Trish. I think a lot of the fault and the liability lies with the fact that it's social media, it's the marketers that are out there and telling people that they have to look a certain way.
But this whole movement is about now marketers telling people that you should love yourself regardless. So if
but
they
a
were
kid
to blame
doesn't
before,
understand that.
should they be credited now?
It's
How
an
many of us
onslaught.
can say that kids don't understand that you should love yourself in any which way you look? Kids see
But they
these
understand you should look like Twiggy?
because that's what they want. Because, for example, for a girl,
Inherently.
for a 13-year-old boy, for a 13-year-old girl, it's let me feel and look and pretty so that I can attract a boy. It all comes back to a lot of that.
But the
And
boys don't want women who look like Kate Moss in a lot of cases.
yeah, but not necessarily, right? Like, and that's just my opinion, and then you have those influences that are happening, and then you see the boys that are watching stuff on TikTok, and
Right.
the world is full of a perpetuated reality that's not real. It's a delusional reality in my mind.
100%.
Understood. I
And
would like for people to comment, by the way, people who are listening to us right now, you understand the controversy that we're talking about. Children especially are getting messages from media constantly. They feel pressure to live up to that. As a result of that, there has been a movement towards body acceptance, body positivity. A lot of the advertisers are kind of jumping on that train. So is it the case that they should be blamed now if they're sending a different message? Or do we need to develop within our children enough inner fortitude so that it's much less of an issue? Jen has something to say. You know how I know this? Because she is the world's worst poker player. She is not stoic in the least. Go ahead,
can I
Jen.
interrupt you really quick though, Dr. R?
Go ahead. Let Corinne
I'm
go.
going to let you this time. You know how I feel about interruptions, but go for it.
But I asked before I did it.
You did. You interrupted and then asked if you could interrupt. Yes. Go
And
ahead.
I'm giving my session to Corinne right now.
Corinne and then Jen.
You struck a nerve what you just said, like, is it our fault? Or you said something to that perspective, like, no matter what, as a parent, you can guide them and you can tell them to feel a certain way.
Right.
But when you have all these outside forces, for example,
Doesn't
like
matter.
on Snapchat, on TikTok, on Instagram, and they're looking these certain ways, no matter how much you tell them, it doesn't matter. If it
Your
doesn't
mother
match
never
the
tried to influence your appearance?
It's all influenced. Like,
No. You're saying as a parent, it doesn't matter to you, and
no,
it's all in the media. Your mother never tried to influence your appearance. If that's the
that
case,
that's
you
not what
might be
I'm
the only
saying.
one.
That's absolutely not what I'm saying. What
So
I'm
there are
saying
other
is,
influences.
no matter how much we try to influence them, when you're a young teenager, it doesn't matter.
Correct.
You can't get through to them. Like I have sweatpants outfits for Brianna, for example. Something as simple as a sweatpants outfit. I'm not wearing matching anymore. That's for babies. Oh, excuse me. Like, it's sweatpants. It's black sweatpants and a sweatshirt. Are you kidding me right now?
Who
Who
told
wears
them that was
matching
baby shit?
sweatpants? Corinne, what kind of an abusive mom are you?
I know.
Jennifer, you had something to say. Go for it.
So Corinne basically pulled it out of my head. Thank you. And I'm going to try to get through this without like bawling. So we've emphasized health in this house, right? Health over weight, over, fortunately, the majority of my family is inherently thin. My girls inherited that gene from my mom's side of the family. So we never really talked about weight. I was overweight, but I talked about getting healthy. But the emphasis for them was never on don't eat that, you're going to gain weight, don't eat that, it was always on let's make healthy choices. So as a parent, we do have a certain influence up until a certain age. And then, like Corinne said, there is an onslaught of information that comes at these kids that renders our sphere of influence, it's null and void. And as a parent, it's heartbreaking to see when our kids go through things. A lot of it is influenced by their likes and their tastes. And I'm going to say, like, in videos, in movies, and, you have people who watch, like, I can't think of her name, Melissa McCarthy, right? I love her. I would crack up every time she walks on the screen. She doesn't even say anything. So if you have a set of kids who watch that, maybe they'll lean a little bit more towards bigger, right? Because those are their influences. But then if you have kids who are really into the like manga movies, the anime movies, they want to emulate what they see, which is those rail thin waifs with the Barbie doll waist and the ribs hanging out. And it's really an unhealthy look. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay. All right. Well, we brought up the point. Listen, it's very clear that there are more messages coming at people these days than ever. All we see is images flashing in our head,
100%.
whatever the speed of motion picture images are, right? And that certainly can have an effect. This topic is nothing new.
Right.
Body shaming, trying to influence certain appearances, it's not new. Parents have been doing it for millennia. Mothers have been doing it for millennia. We've all, I don't know that we've all, but many of us have been subjected to that from our parents also, who want what's best for us. And part of the reason is because they don't want us to suffer from body shaming from others, but also there is an understanding that if a person is in a particular shape, that reflects sort of who they are.
Right.
Overweight people are lazy and undisciplined.
Right.
And stories like that. But Jen, you were just reading what Joe wrote, and I didn't see that. So what did Joe have to say?
So Joe is saying that, he agrees that it's gotten out of hand, but he believes that he thought that this conversation was going to be about people who've been on program, lost a lot of weight, and are still unhappy with their body image.
Oh, we didn't even hit that. Yeah, thank you, Joe, because yes, we should talk about that.
He said topic for another day. So I'm just going to wrap up, if it's okay, so I can compose myself a little bit. So ultimately, it comes down to each individual's personal responsibility. And that is hard. Like, our kids decide, or we decide what we want to look like, and they decide independently of us. But it's not so independently because they are influenced. But ultimately, despite what's out there, they still have to make personal choices. And we can kind of guide them in that. But it does come down to personal responsibility at a certain point also. Because you decide to eat a lot, or you decide to not eat, right? So
often, yeah. Well, I wanted to hit on what Joe was saying, because yes, this is something that we see. A person will do our program, they will lose a tremendous amount of weight, and they'll look in the mirror and still see the same person that they saw before. They'll see the same body that they saw before. Their focus will go to what's not ideal as opposed to what is much better. So what is that about? How come we don't have seemingly any ability to judge ourselves in any objective way, but we kind of see what we're used to seeing? Trish, thoughts? You've lost a lot of weight lately and you look terrific. So what are your thoughts?
I have that. I look in the mirror sometimes and I feel like I look exactly the same. I know.
How could you think that, Trish? You
have
lost so much weight. You look freaking
thank you. I appreciate
amazing,
that, but
and you should be proud of yourself.
I do, and I am proud, and I'm happy, and I feel like I am setting positive. Like, we do eat healthier as a family since starting, and for almost a full year of eating cleaner in our house, but I still sometimes I struggle with that too. Like, I'm like, I'll nitpick. I had twins. My belly is not what it was prior to having twins, and that's something hard to look at still daily. So I struggle with that too.
So, Trish, first of all, how much weight have you lost?
Officially, like, probably close to 50 pounds.
Okay. So you lost 50 pounds. You did not start out at 600 pounds. So there's no way that that there hasn't been a big change in the shape of your body. There has been.
Listen, I went down like 3 dress like pant sizes, which is a lot, for a woman,
right.
But sometimes I'm like, this is still mushy, or this is still ugly. And I feel like we just do that to ourselves.
Well, where do you think that comes from?
Oh, I guess I'm thinking of what I used to look like, prior to babies. And listen, my life, 20 years ago, I was, wearing a bikini, that 41, I'm not putting that on anytime soon, regardless of how much weight I lose. So, I think
you could rock a bikini right now and be proud.
That's right. You could rock that bikini.
Go to Europe. You could wear anything.
That's right. Yeah, you see, you could wear the banana hammock in Europe. But listen to me. I say this to people who are on the program all the time. The mirror will lie to you. Please do not believe the mirror. Your friends will lie to you also. And if they don't, they're probably just mean and nasty, right? We have to go, the best way to go by our appearance is either photographs or things like pant size or some other objective measure. Not weight so much, because weight doesn't talk about body composition, right? Every bodybuilder is way overweight. So is every linebacker that doesn't have an ounce of fat on them.
Right.
So we have to go by a size measurement, like clothes or a tape measure, or we have to go by photographs. Otherwise, you will be lied to you. You will lie to yourselves. We seemingly have no ability to judge our own appearance. And we're like that with everything. I hate how I sound. I don't listen to these things. Can you guys listen to yourself?
Nope.
We don't sound the same.
We sound better in our heads than we do when we actually hear ourselves, I think. But actually, Jen likes the way she sounds. No, there's just something about us where we tend to be very self-judgmental when we get out of our own heads, and it's a very weird phenomenon.
Yeah, we get these, like, especially people who have been overweight for so long, we get these like mental image pictures stuck in our head of what we look like. We become like kind of eye blind to what we really look like. And if you pass a mirror and you go, whoa, who's that? You're still expecting to see the bigger girl, right? And then it takes a while to acclimate. And sometimes it doesn't ever, because we're stuck in those pictures that we have of ourselves. And then the opposite could be true too. Like, you could have been skinny for a long time and you don't really recognize what you look like as a bigger girl. And then you look at the mirror and you're like, whoa, or you see a photograph of yourself and it's so.
Well, Joe, you're looking at Joe's comment? Yeah, Joe made a comment. Joe has lost a tremendous amount of weight, and yet he still tends to look at the wrong thing, right? He's looking at the wrong information
Right.
Again, there's some kind of an ideal that we're all always comparing ourselves to. Believe me, Joe, you're much better comparing yourself to a few years ago than you are comparing to yourself in the ideal that's in your head, which
Of
may or
change.
may not be as a result of the media. That ideal of
Mhm.
perfection, it's not necessarily going to be real. And Joe, we have to make some concessions for age, don't we? I mean, unfortunately, it's gonna happen to
It's
us.
gonna
The
happen
hair
no matter what.
goes, the muscles go, the it all goes. It's kind of how it's designed, and yet we're surprised when it does, aren't we?
Yeah, and there's age, and then for women, there is childbearing that changes our
Yep.
body composition for sure. And then there's also, even as people get older, even if they're not overweight, their body shape changes. Like women's hips get bigger. I remember complaining about stretch marks on my stomach, and my youngest one, who was very astute, said, "That's what did she say? Those are something about evidence of the love you had for us by carrying us." It was like, I'm paraphrasing, but I
Oh,
was like, "Oh,
whatever. That sounds like a rationalization. But anyway,
no, no, no." She was like really sweet about it because she
okay,
didn't see what I saw.
Right.
Like she didn't see the ugliness of the scars. She saw the beauty of me bringing the kids into the world. So
right.
we have to flip our thought process on that a little bit too.
Well, here's
It's
a
just part of
question.
it.
I have a question for all three of you.
Uh-oh.
Um, who has your ideal body, the body that you would like to have? Which celebrity has what you consider the perfect body? Jen, why don't you start?
It's Nicole Kidman.
Nicole
Tall,
Kidman.
willowy, lanky, lean. I just love it.
Got it.
I'll
I
never
just
be
saw a
that.
movie with her the other night.
Did
Okay,
you?
Corinne.
I would say Jennifer Aniston.
The movie had Nicole Kidman and Jennifer Aniston. How about that?
She's
Okay.
curvy though.
Yeah, but I am a
Yeah,
curvy
she's
person.
somewhat. She's not like
She's
crazy curvy.
beautiful. She's got
Yeah.
beautiful muscles.
Yeah. Okay, Trish.
So I personally, lady crush on Charlize Theron. I love her. I feel like she's tall and she's not super thin, but she's kind of curvy. But she never looked super thin. But I guess she's tall. She carries it very well. I just love her. She's one of my favorites.
Got it. Okay. Now, do you think if suddenly I were to transform you into your celebrity body type, do you think you would be considerably happier people?
I think I'd walk around with more confidence.
Okay.
So the answer is for me, maybe. Although I looked back at pictures of me 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and I had the body type I wanted, but I was doing yoga 4 days a week. I was not worrying about my weight. I was eating super clean. So if you could like wave a wand and transform me back into that person 4 years ago, which I'm working on, then I'd be happy. Because at my best health, I like my body.
Well,
Although I could be
process and
taller.
appearance are obviously two different things, right?
Mhm.
But you said your ideal body is
Yeah.
Nicole Kidman, right? So Nicole Kidman is
Yes.
what, 5'10", 5'11"?
I want to be tall.
Yeah, she has visible abs, by the way. And so would you be a considerably happier person if that was your body?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's hard to know, right?
Hard to know.
Okay. Trish?
I would hope so, but I'm sure
Charlize?
you
Wanna
would
look like
find
Charlize?
something to pick on. I'm sure we would find something to pick on,
That's the amazing thing, isn't it? If you think you had conversation with Charlize Theron, she would be complaining about her ass too, just like everyone
Sure,
else you
she would
speak
pick
to.
something out.
Right,
We
she
see
would
them
find
on all
something.
these, we see them on TV and on social media, and they're in probably every form of gear, holding it all together underneath their gowns. And we think they're perfect, but they're probably just like us, complaining about
Photoshopped, airbrushed.
filters, on everybody's
exactly.
faces.
And it's worse for that. I mean, look at all the attention that they get, and look at all the criticism they get. God forbid one of them gains 5 pounds.
Right.
I mean, it's really horrifying.
Yeah, all their mistakes are in the eye shot of the camera. Can I comment on what Joe said, actually? So we didn't really give Joe props for what he's done. Like,
Well, he looks
Joe,
ugly, though.
Sorry, Joe.
if you come into the weight room and you complain, I'm going to kick you out. Like, I literally kick you in the shins and push you out of the weight room, because your transformation has been amazing. Like you walk in and you wouldn't even be recognizable as the same person who showed us the before pictures.
I couldn't believe it before.
Snap out of it.
Yeah, take it easy. Yeah, Jen, you're getting a little excitable. We try not to kick people in the office. There are laws about that.
So there
But
are
I agree with Jen. Like
Yeah.
you've killed it. You've done something that other people wish they can do.
Yeah.
And be proud of what you've accomplished and stand tall. And yeah, so what? You have some sagginess. Who cares? You still have decided to get healthy.
Correct.
You still have decided
It
to
looks
be a
awful.
better you. Be proud of that.
Let me suggest something here. The struggle, it's not really what we're talking about now. The struggle is not necessarily with body. It's not necessarily with body image, although it is sort of. The struggle is the struggle to be happy. And some people are, are challenged with that. And not Joe so much. Joe's a really happy guy. But we do talk about people. We do see people, they lose a tremendous amount of weight. They look terrific. They're getting compliments left and right, and they can't own it. We spend half of our time convincing people who have won that they have, in fact, won.
Yeah.
It is an unbelievable thing, and it's a shame, and it affects us. The reason it affects us is because we have a mission to create happy, healthy, hopeful people.
Right.
And there are some people who just struggle so much with the happiness. Someone loses 30 pounds on the program and they're pissed off because in their mind, if I only lost 5 more, then I'd be happy. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't, because at that point you'd say, if I only lost 10 more than that. I mean, it is incredible. So it is incumbent upon ourselves to just be cool with ourselves, and body acceptance and all acceptance starts with us, and it doesn't start with the media. Sorry, ladies, we're going to have to disagree on that one. But let me suggest something else, and this is going to be kind of a closing point, I think, because we could probably go on this. One of the problems is that we are pagans. We are all pagans. I'm sorry. I don't mean to insult you. I know you're proud of being Christians and Jews and Muslims and that, but we're all pagans. We're all so focused on the material. Our bodies are shells that house us. There is so much focus on that. We have trouble seeing the person through their bodies, and that includes ourselves. And as long as we're materialists like that, to some degree, we're going to continue to suffer. Welcome to life on planet Earth.
I did mention personal responsibility, but happiness is an inside job.
Happiness is an
inside job, but Dr. R, social media affects the wiring, in my opinion, of a child's brain.
100%.
So no matter how much, and it affects all of our wiring, no matter how much you say it's our job, you're right. But what we're leaving out the fact that children specifically are easily influenced.
There's no doubt. And I'm not minimizing anything. I am saying it's incumbent upon us, and that struggle to be happy is always our responsibility and nobody else's.
Absolutely.
And even before the advent of social media, before the advent of media, there was these kinds of societal pressures. There were these ideals that existed. I assume it's gotten worse. I don't know. I would have to go hang out with the Aborigines or something. I have no plans to do that.
Yeah, great.
It is awful. It's
yeah.
absolutely awful the way kids try to hang out with each other. Oh, I can't ask that person to hang out with me. I just say hello to them in class, or I snap them, but I won't hang out with them. Like, just get outside and ride your freaking bike and go find somebody.
Wait, I don't understand what you just said.
Snapchat.
Like, kids are brave on social media to have a conversation, but they're not brave to hang out.
Oh, sure. They don't even want to see another human being within 10 miles. So that's a whole different story. Yes. Social media,
but it's all tied together.
Of course it's all tied together. Everything's all tied together. But social media sucks, but it is our current reality right now, or our current non-reality. But on that happy note, let's go. I think it is ultimately a good thing, just a little more awareness about this whole subject. about how we contribute to it, about the fact that, you know, we can kind of change it. Joe, you can decide to look at the positive. The GPS is set on a wrong destination. So you can reset your GPS by just looking at, you know, where you've come from and accepting it in a very profound way. But that's going to be it, unless anyone else has something that they just must say.
I was going to respond to Joe. Like, I don't threaten to kick all the clients, just the ones that I have a really good rapport with. So I only threaten to kick the people I love.
I'm sure that's very comforting to Joe and his shins. All right. We will see everyone next week. Take care.
Bye, guys.